I got the music in me, knew it simply had to be my destiny. I'm blessed to be the best within my C-N-H-E-N-D. Please believe not Ninja Gaiden. I'm not the guy to fight with them lightning. They come in dumb and I leave them enlightened.
What's up, my wizards, and happy birthday, America. It's Dev from SBMTG. We like magic, and we're on YouTubes. Today, we have a deck tech, one of these mid-spoiler season deck techs I like to do from time to time, where we've seen some of the set, and we've seen some really exciting things. And although we can't put together like full lists or anything, like this is the definitive list, you know, I sometimes like to brew around and play with these cards and see how they interact with the older cards in the format. And today, we get to do that with a theme, because it's July 4th, so we're going to do Jeskai Eldrazi today. And we're going to use a couple of things that have been spoiled in Eldritch Moon so far so that you can get an idea of sort of how these, again, work with, you know, existing stuff in the format. But of course, keep in mind that things can always be spoiled any day now that are really, really good for exactly this list, so keep an eye out for that. But bottom line, I like to play around with new cards because I can't wait to play with new cards. And then I might as well show you guys sort of some of the interactions that we found, and if they really, really work together like people are saying they might. So, because there's a hyped combo in this list, you know, there's a couple of things people are talking about, so let's see if they actually work. But one more note before we move on to the actual deck tech here. Just a quick note on rotation. I said this in a spoiler video the other day, but I want to make sure this information gets out because I see conflicting things in comment sections all the time. When Eldritch Moon comes in just a couple of weeks here, we will not lose Dragons of Tarkir or Magic Origins. Those sets will stay in standard until Kaladesh comes in on September 30th. So everything from those sets we have for another couple of months. Just keep that in mind. Let's talk about the stupid deck. So what does this deck do? Well, it's obviously a red, white, and blue deck because it has to be on theme, and it's basically an Eldrazi deck that also actually plays a fair amount of humans because, you know, America, humans and Eldrazi got to work together because sometimes they try to divide people, you know, but in the end we all got to work together to get things accomplished because America.
SJW.
So where do we start? Let's talk about what this deck does and things that's important with the things. I think a good place to start is the 3 copies of Nahiri the Harbinger we're playing. Lady Liberty. Nahiri's a really good utility planeswalker, obviously. She, you know, removes things, that's really important. Not just creatures either, other things. And she can, you know, she's card selection. In this deck, she allows us to dump creatures in the graveyard. We can get out with another creature a little bit later. There's things, you know, we're playing Eldrazi Displacer in the deck, so if we ultimate something into play with her, we can displace it and keep that thing around. You know, it won't bounce back to our hand if that's what we want to do. So lots of cool tricks with Nahiri outside of just her utility. She does so much for the deck, and I'll mention her name a few times as we go through the deck tech here. So I wanted to start with her, but lots of stuff to talk about this deck does. Well, if we're going to play Nahiri, we're going to play a couple of like stupid, nasty, dumb guys at the top end of the curve that we can either just play with mana, that's how games usually played, or we can slap it into play with Nahiri's ultimate. That's also really cool. We can do that. So we're going to play some one-of creatures here that, you know, when we bounce them back to our hand after ultimating them into play with Nahiri, we can cast them and get cast effects and have super fun times. So here's some stuff we can do that with. First of all, just the 1 silver bullet copy of Emrakul, Our Lady of this set. Emmy is actually pretty freaking awesome, obviously, and there's a couple of ways we can get her into play in this deck. Not only can we ultimate her into play, but we are playing 6 different card types in the deck, so it's possible, at least theoretically, that we can only pay 7 for this, and there's a lot of times we'll probably end up paying 9 or 10, same cost as an Ulamog, you know? So it's not unrealistic at all just to play this for mana and lands that you tap. So you don't even have to ultimate into play sometimes. But Emrakul, the Mindslaver effect is ridiculous on the thing. Other than that, it's just a huge flample, flying, trample thing that goes through for 13 damage. So, stupid thing. It's obviously, for story reasons, what Nahiri's supposed to be getting into play. So, you know, just for flavor, we should probably play this anyway. But Emrakul is obviously amazing, so we have access to this in just a couple of weeks. Let's throw it in the deck, see how it plays. Turns out awesome. But we're still going to leave room for 1 copy of Ulamog. Can't leave Ulamog behind, he's awesome. Same thing with this too, we can ultimate into play, pops back to our hand end of turn, and then we can cast it a little bit later on for that cast trigger. Not bad at all, that seems cool. And we've even got a way in this deck of bouncing those creatures back to our hand once they're in play, so that we can cast them again, you know, we can get another cast trigger off of them. So, lots of cool tricks with things with cast triggers, and Ulamog is just the thing that wins the game in standard right now. Maybe Emmy will be that in a couple of months, who knows. But or a couple of weeks now, actually. But right now, Ulamog is still big and bad and dumb, and that cast trigger is just good enough to play in a deck that wants to do the cast trigger more than once. So, yes. We're also going to play one copy of Bruna in the deck. We're playing some Bruna here. A couple of angels here in the deck so that we can put together the big stupid angel. But Bruna actually serves pretty good purpose in this deck, man. We can discard humans to Nahiri, or angels to Nahiri, like Gisela in the deck. We're also playing her. Get to that in a second. Literally a second. But with Bruna, we can get any of those back and put them into play that we lost to, say, discarding to Nahiri, or maybe that we lost in combat earlier on in the game, you know. Bruna's good for that, and we can also put her in Gisela. Here's Gisela right here. She's crazy. And make her Brisella. Brisella, I hate the Dragon Ball Z naming convention there. But in any case, Brisella's obviously super stupid. Like, we don't even have to talk about how stupid Brisella is. It's obviously, if you get a hit in with this, you more or less win the game. So there's that. But Gisela herself is awesome on turn 4. We are playing a fair amount of 4-drops in the deck, and that's slightly dangerous. But at the same time, all of our 4-drops are really, really good. You know, so there will be decisions sometimes on what 4-drop you play, but Gisela's never a bad decision, you know. She's 4 lifelink damage. That's crazy whether she's attacking or blocking. Helps you get back in the game against aggressive decks, and blocks extremely well, too. She also obviously attacks really well, applies pressure against certain decks, so she's just everything against a lot of things. So definitely want to play Gisela anyway, you know, and works well with Bruna. Obviously, Bruna can bring her back in if she dies at any point, and then they can meld together into Brisella. So really awesome thing right here, and obviously you can tutor up either half of the combo if you don't have it yet with a Nahiri. We've actually got one more big Eldrazi that we're playing at the top of our curve. I just really wanted to talk about Gisela and Bruna and the girls first, because they're really, really real. It turns out people are talking about those cards like, is this real, or are we really going to do this? Yes. It's real. That issue's real. Just like this issue right here. Another thing people are talking about. There's a combo in the upcoming standard that people are wondering if it's going to work the way we want it to work. And yes, it turns out it does work the way we want it to work. But we got to talk about those big old Eldrazi ladies. Probably, I think this is a lady octopus. I don't know. I can tell. It's a lady octopus. The octopus is real too. There's a couple of cool things you can do with Deep Fried Fiend here. You could always play a 3-drop, say Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and then 4th turn, you know, during their upkeep is ideal here. You go ahead and sacrifice your Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and then you can play it for just the 4 mana during their upkeep and tap their lands down during their upkeep. That's awesome. They can't use their lands throughout their entire turn. That's cool. Or you can just tap down other creatures so they can't attack. That's also possible. You can tap a combination of them. Nobody's stopping you. So Deep Fiend's really good in that way. But if you want to live the dream, the combos everyone's talking about is with Kozilek's Return. Now ideally the way you play with Kozilek's Return is 3rd turn Kozilek's Return, 4th turn, let's just call it again Eldrazi Sky Spawner. And then 5th turn, you're going to want to sacrifice your Sky Spawner again and play this. Deep Fiend. That way you can replay Kozilek's Return. Wipe pretty much everything on the board. That's 5 damage to everything right there. But you get to keep your Deep Fiend out and tap any remaining huge guys that happen to be out or lands down. And again, you can do all of this during their upkeep. So when you say go and they untap, before they draw their card, you'll tap down 4 of their lands and destroy pretty much every one of their creatures before they've really even started their turn. That is one of the realest plays in the upcoming standard, and I guarantee you that will be a thing. Blue-Red Eldrazi is already a deck, and this slots in so well, and I don't know if it'll be worth adding white to the deck to play Nahiri and a couple of cards in the sideboard and Declaration in Stone. But if even just the blue-red deck sticks around, this card is a super ridiculous addition to it that gives it, maybe, seriously, the best play in Standard. But if we're going to emerge Deep Fiend into play, we have to play a few smaller creatures so that we can emerge. You know, that seems right. We have to be consistent in that. So there's a couple of things we can play, and I've already told you that we're going to play some Eldrazi Sky Spawner. We're going to play 3 copies of that right there, and it's pretty good. I've already told you we're playing Eldrazi Displace here, and, you know, this displaces quite well. And it's also just a flyer. 2-power flyer's not bad, and when you do emerge it, you know, you sacrifice this for emerge, it does leave behind a token. That's cool. That you can either use to block with later, attack with, or you can just sacrifice to pay more of the emerge cost, you know, basically, effectively, you know. So, not bad at all. I really like Eldrazi Sky Spawner as sort of a stalling mechanism, and something that can be displaced a bunch of times, and something that we can, you know, sacrifice for emerge. It has a lot of hats in the deck, and it wears them all well. And I might as well tell you that we're playing 2 copies of Eldrazi Displacer in the deck. A lot of things in the deck displace well, and of course we can use this for other reasons, not just into the battlefield triggers, but we can protect our guys, we can lock their guys out of combat, that's always cool. Lots of things we can do with an Eldrazi Displacer, including, like I've already mentioned, ultimating something into play with Nahiri, and then blinking it with an Eldrazi Displacer, and it won't pop back to our hand. Again, if that's what we're looking to do, like we don't have the mana to recast it anytime soon, we can always do that. So again, lots of hats in this deck to go around. Eldrazi Displacer, again, is just a brilliant hat wearer, and there's other things that we can displace too, like this next card. Well, I told you humans and Eldrazi were working together in the deck, and I've told you about the Eldrazi. Here's some humans here. This is a great target for Displacer right off the bat. This is Reflector Mage right here. We're going to play a whole 4 copies of this. Reflector Mage is just amazing in every deck that people put him in. He's a great Displacer target. Really, really good tempo. We want to get a little bit later in the game. And this is fairly effective pseudo removal. And it's a great blocker. We can pressure some decks with it too. So Reflector Mage is just one of the best freaking cards in the format, to be honest with you. We're in the colors for it, and honestly, it's one of the better reasons to play blue in some ways. It's also, keep in mind, a human that Bruna can pull out of the graveyard, so when you cast your Bruna, get a Reflector Mage and pop something back to their hand for a long time. So that can sometimes be a really good play too. Let's finish off the creatures here, and I'm going to play one more human creature we can pull out of the graveyard with Bruna, and something else so we can emerge to Deep Fiend. Lots of reasons why we want 3-drop creatures, and specifically humans too, mostly because of Bruna. But in any case, I'm going to fill that slot with a 3-of copy of Hamwired Garrison. Garrison is very good, and it looks a little out of place in the deck because it attacks well in the sort of mid-game, and we won't be turning the corner and attacking until the slightly later game in the deck. But it does create dudes for us that allows us to play at least 1 copy of Westvale Abbey in the land base and feel comfortable doing so. And obviously it also gives us access to a really powerful meld mechanic thing, and we can transform it into Writhing Township, which is just a ridiculous card. I mean, when you look at the powerful options in this deck, we're playing Emrakul, we're playing Ulamog, we're playing the Angels that meld together, we're playing Reflector Mage, that's a powerful option it turns out, we're playing Nahiri in the deck, just a lot of power, the Deep Sea Fiend or the Deep Fiend combo, playing that, just tons and tons of raw power in the deck. And having Hamwired the Writhing Township is just another way of having a super powerful option in the deck, and it opens us up to another powerful option in Westvale Abbey. So really like a lot of things about the card, and again it synergizes well with Bruna and in turn Nahiri, because you can comfortably discard this to Nahiri and get it back with a Bruna later. So lots of reasons to play this card right here, and it can come up the board against certain matches really, really fast. It's sort of like Goblin Rabblemaster in that way. So really good against certain decks and synergizes well. Love Garrison. We also have to play some removal in the deck, so I'm going to move on to the spells here. We're just going to slip this in here. We're going to play 4 whole copies of Declaration in Stone. Yet another good reason to play white, and a really good 2-drop for us. And of course, we have decent 2-drop removal in red. We could just play Roast or something like that. But I think Declaration is easily the best 2-mana removal in the format. And if we have access to it, we should play all 4 copies. And speaking of Kozilek's Return, we'll play 3 copies of it in the main deck here. Just again, fantastic against the Collected Company decks in a lot of ways. Sometimes they'll play things like Sylvan Advocate, Reflector Mage, they always do. But we can also take out a lot of their smaller creatures with something like Kozilek's Return, and all the, Cryptolith Rite decks, the Aristocrats decks, stuff like that, the Tokens decks. Return is just fantastic against, and obviously it opens us up to a stupid powerful combo. I'm also going to play a couple of copies of Hedron Archive in the deck. Just 2 copies of Hedron Archive. This is still very reminiscent in some ways of the Blue-Red Eldrazi deck. It sort of takes its cue from that and just plays more creatures so that it can more comfortably play, the Merge on Deep Fiend. So that's sort of the basic idea, is play Blue-Red Eldrazi, make Emerging Deep Fiend more comfortable, and then do some other stuff that's fun. So that's the basic idea. And this helps us with that in a lot of ways, because we're still a ramp deck at heart, And just to point this out, this is an artifact that we can easily put into the graveyard so that we can cast Emrakul for cheaper. So also point that out. Helps us, generate colorless mana for Eldrazi Displacer's ability. Just still lots of good things about this, not only in a ramp deck, but in this deck. And we started the deck with the Planeswalker. Let's finish the deck with the Planeswalker. We're playing 2 copies of Jace, Unraveler of Secrets in the deck. This is pretty cool right here, it turns out. The Blue-Red Eldrazi decks already play a couple of copies of Jace, and I definitely see why. The card advantage is great. The deck really does want this mid-game card advantage an awful lot. It's digging for a few different pieces, and it's got to find them. And mana, too. Sometimes it's looking to fix its mana even this late into the game. So that first ability is incredible. Not only that, but the bounce ability is great. It's effective removal and great tempo against opponents, but it can also be a way to cheat our own creatures back into our hand and then get cast triggers on them again. So love the bounce on it. And of course the ultimate effectively can lock them out in a lot of ways. So the ultimate's good too. But mostly I like the synergy with the neg 2 on the thing. And of course, card advantage is always great. And this is, you know, scry 1 and draw a card is amazing. So Jace definitely still keeps at least a couple of slots. 27 lands in the deck, and there's a few things to talk about because this is a difficult mana base to build. Jeskai is one of the tough color combinations to build, and we have to make room for Eldrazi stuff, you know, colorless lands. So usually a difficult nut to crack, but we get to play 27 lands in the deck, so that helps us out a little bit. You know, we get to play more sources than we normally would. So, you know, there's just a couple of things more to talk about, really. You know, we've got Hamwar Battlements. Better than it looks because it can give huge dudes haste that we, you know, hard cast. That's not bad. Really good, actually. Worth waiting the extra turn for sometimes. And obviously it melds too, so yay, that's also good. But there's cards that we have in here, last point I'll make, I guess. There's cards that we have in here that will go to the graveyard. Evolving Wilds, Sanctum of Ugin, our creature lands, and that can help out casting Imrikul. You know, we want lands in the graveyard. That's a different type of card, and thus it'll lower the cost of an Emmy. So that's cool too. Just a lot to talk about in this mana base. And obviously sometimes too, Needle Spires and Wandering Fumarole are better cards than they look like. And here's the super important but relatively typical sideboard. Playing white in this combination opens us up to Hallowed Moonlight in the board, which I think is actually really important. Hallowed Moonlight is probably the best, maybe, sideboard card in the format right now. It can really, really help out game 2 or 3 against the Bant Company decks, really any company decks. So really have liked Hallowed Moonlight being open to us in this deck. But obviously there's a lot of good stuff for playing in this board. Chandra Flamecaller could be in the main deck, and obviously Linvala could too, but she's a good option too against the aggro decks if we can get her out. So pretty typical sideboard here, but a couple of twists and turns, and Hallowed Moonlight is just so great that we have access to that. Now, I'm not going to assign power rankings like I normally do to this deck because obviously I haven't really gotten to play many games with it, like at all. So I don't really know all the interactions. I just know a lot of the theoretical interactions the deck has, and there's a ton of synergy, and it sort of feels like a mid-60s deck, but I'm not really going to tally it up or anything. Again, I don't know enough about it. But all the theoretical interactions are really, really exciting. And note, I want to point this out, that even though nothing rotates for a couple of months, none of the cards in the main deck will rotate in September. That's important to note. In the main deck, there's no cards from Origins or Dragons of Tarkir. So when things do rotate in September, this deck will still be completely legal. The only thing in the sideboard that rotates are a couple of things like Impulse, Hallowed Moonlight, you know, there's not too much at all. So the deck is going to remain relevant or at least playable in Standard for a while now, and we may see some really good pieces for it along the way. So keep your eye out. I really think America Eldrazi could be a totally actually real deck. But let me know how you feel about this deck right here and all the different stuff that it does and how you do it differently. I was thinking maybe cut Hamward Garrison and put in, you know, maybe even one more land and definitely a couple of copies of Hedron Archive. Just make it 4 Archive. I can see the deck doing that, but I like having Garrison in again because it synergizes well with Bruna and in turn Nahiri. There's a lot of things, I'll say this one more time, that synergize well with one thing and so in turn synergize well with another. Because that, my friend, is America. All the little pieces working together to form a great nation. America. I'm Deb from SBMTG. If you enjoyed this content, like the content. It makes sense. If you want to share it, you can share the content. You can subscribe for more content from Americans.
Oh my god.
I can't even keep a straight face, I'm sorry. If you like the content, so if you want more. I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.